Yeah,
That was how
that's
my time on the counter protest side ended.
so. First of all, like they didn't even want to ask, like, "Oh, why are you here?" or "What do you believe and why?" There's no curiosity. The presumption is we're right. Well, first of all, you didn't have a stance, but the fact that you filmed Antifa, I think that's a giveaway because the only people that want to document Antifa is somebody who's on the other side. Um,
Right. Right.
that is, I think, to them, the fact that Antifa is covered means they are within the movement. They are protecting the movement, and part of that protection is them being aggressive and having their identities covered. So if
Mm-hmm.
anything shows their identities, then that compromises the members of Antifa, which are just
Yeah.
loosely anybody who just shows up to these things. I know there's different chats or forums that they're on, and they do organize or they have call to actions that way. There is, I think it's worth noting. Maybe I'll bring this up. There's books and resources for Antifa to like teaching kind of the tactics and strategies for disruption. The book and website is called uh, it's called Beautiful Trouble. I'm just gonna pull it up here because we saw that in action, and this website it actually makes a better sense. So, well, it sounds pretty good, like, oh, you're empowering individuals to get their voices heard, etc. And but you start looking more into the theories and the tactics. This is where you get things like, well, the real action is your target's reaction.
Hmm.
Where they're trying to provoke responses, and they have historical
Not only the
examples.
target, the real action is the enemy's reaction. Wow.
Yes.
That's some,
So,
that's some that's a very particular linguistic choice there.
well, and part of this principle is that by them going to a protest and being antagonistic, if there's anybody gets shoved back, they have footage of somebody shoving them. And if they're calling if they're calling protesters fascists or alt-right, or they're violent or they're hateful, any reaction from them defending themselves can now be used as an example of proof that they are hateful or fascist. So they are almost creating what they want. Because think of this as a theater. This is a public sphere, and they are trying to frame things in a certain way. The whole aspect of them being anti-fascist is because they're rising up to this threat of fascism, which they think is these parents protesting. Like, so
Yeah.
the demand for fascism right now is higher than the actual supply of regular, like, these parents are not fascist by any means of the definition.
Yeah.
So there is even if we go to this tactics page, you could see, like, well, they have the creative disruption, they have culture jamming, they have noise, they have, you start like really looking into this and you're like, well, nothing seems too out of line of what we see at these protests. We see people using umbrellas, using signs. They're trying to like block people in. They're trying to surround people. It's a disruption tactic. So
Yeah, they very like it. It's almost like it happened non-verbally, that they all started to kind of coalesce near the edge of the curb there, leaving me no space. And my only choice was to back up if I didn't want to push back against them, because, I mean, I knew, like, you could hear my voice saying, like, hey, get your hands off me, right? And to their credit, they didn't, like, no one took a swing at me or anything. Like, no one did anything outrageously violent, but just the action of them kind of moving as a wave, sort of like that, leaving me the only place to go onto the road where there was cars turning. It was very effective.
Yeah, well, it was a mob mentality. They had you surrounded.
Yeah.
They were using signs and other devices to push you instead of using their hands for the most part.
Yeah.
So that's a way of saying, well, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. It's just my umbrella or it's just my sign. So they have some buffer there where they're like, well, I never struck him, but it's a form of, it is antagonization in a way. So I think I would bet good money that the people who dress head to toe as Antifa are well versed in some of these theories and or in their chats and or whatever groups that kind of, I know it's decentralized, but they do kind of emerge. I bet they talk about these things of like, okay, if somebody comes up to you, what do you do? Like, how do you deal with this situation? They've likely discussed a few of these things in beforehand, or you spread this information kind of peer to peer from that way. So these tactics are not hidden; they're out in the open. But it's interesting that this, I would feel that after knowing how they operate, when I see Antifa at a defending a certain point of view, I immediately question the validity of a counter protest if they show up.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to correlate with a good faith protest.
No, I think it's almost as maybe superficial as it seems. I think it's pretty safe to say in a protest where there are two sides and one side has families of all shapes and sizes and colors and creeds, very calmly, assembling and gathering together. And the other side has guys in head to toe black covering their faces with helmets and knuckle duster gloves on. And
these are 20-year-olds.
Young people,
head to toe,
acting aggressively to people who they view as outsiders. I think it doesn't take a very creative mind to think who the aggressors or the bad guys are on that side.